Who are the first few hires an entrepreneur hoping to make their marketing agency a $1 million company?
One of my first hires when it came to videography was actually
Entrepreneurs don't understand what is the right moment to get out. When did you decide to get out?
in the agency business. People end up being close to the scene of action, so it becomes a trap.
If you want to successfully run a company, you should get your hands dirty in each and every role.
You're right. You need to be close to the scene of action. I do hire people fairly quickly. I've been told recently not to do that.
Hire slower, fire faster. Let's be honest, a marketing agency cannot reach $1 billion valuation.
If you want to make $1 billion, go and become a part of a and that is $1 billion business.
When I graduated from IIM Kozhikode, I got a job in cybersecurity. While I was very happy with the cybersecurity job, it got pushed because COVID happened. I was unfortunately a part of the IIM batches who graduated in COVID. And during that time, I started my journey of content creation. I fell in love with creating reels, and finally my job in Dubai started around February of 2021. And the person sitting next to me over here is the one who saw that passion in me. Meet Aasim, my ex-boss, who hired me at a moment when I wanted it the most. Aasim is an IIM Lucknow pass out. He runs one of the largest marketing agencies. It's a $1 million award-winning marketing agency called LPS Brands, but that's not just what he does. He has other companies as well. Plenum Technologies, this is his foray into developing technologies which can solve bigger problems for companies as well as gaming. He is actively involved in developing Stream, which has over 1,000 plus gaming streamers streaming actively on the platform. Aasim, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm so happy to see you where you are right now. You've reached a stage where you inspire a lot of other people, including me, to create a lot of content. I'm really happy to have this conversation with you.
Thank you for giving me that opportunity when you did. Many entrepreneurs who are just going to watch this podcast, right? Like many dream of is making their marketing agency a 7-figure company or a $1 million company, right? But they got to get started somewhere.
Yeah.
Who are the first few hires an entrepreneur hoping to make it needs to hire?
That's an interesting question, and it's also a heavily loaded question. Usually when you start out something, and I didn't come from the agency background. I was essentially 6 years in marketing. And naively, I did think that both are the same sides of the coin, which they aren't. I mean, if you ask me now, I'll tell you there's two different things completely. But at that point of time, it was all about how can you solve for marketing context. As I went along, for me, it was not about, hey, I know how it is done and I'm going to implement it. For me, it was looking at these problems from a very first principle point of view and saying, hey, here's a problem. How would I solve it from a commonsensical, logical, analytical point of view? And then the solutions started sort of coming in. It wasn't someone who sort of understood. I didn't come from the industry, right? So the people that I had to hire would also have to reflect that same mindset. So my initial hires didn't come from agencies. My initial hires actually came from people who had the right skill sets. They were freelancers. I remember one of my first hires when it came to videography was actually a draftsman who's a CAD draftsman in a contracting firm. I just happened to be in a leadership training with him because we're now trying to see how he could be heading our production on social media. So I'm really proud of that. But a lot of these amazing people did not come from a agency background. I would say it was quite organic and easy for all of us to work together and find solutions without getting burdened by how would an agency think.
To sum it up for that entrepreneur who's trying to get started, use common sense, identify what problems are there, hire people who can make the overall organization better than what it is. For example, you're not skilled in videography. So first, if you're creating a video creation company, the first hire could obviously be a video editor or say a videographer who could also be a video editor, right? Like, or hire someone who knows both, someone who could be a videographer plus a video editor. So how have you built that, like one piece by piece, like how did that overall thing came?
All of this started from the need of the client. All these people that we hired, I think one thing which I have kind of learned and realized over a period of time retrospectively, I think ownership is a far more valuable attribute than capability. Any day, I would probably look for a person who shows very strong ownership attributes. So it's all about trying to find these people who really want to do something in that space, and show very strong instances in the past where they've actually clearly decided to do something and not do something. So when you decide things, you actually choose to not do a lot of things, right? So when I'm sitting down and having conversations with people, I really respect people when they say that I decided to get out of something, I decided to move out of something, because they're really clear that they don't want to do something. When you meet people, the processes of interview is I think we all need to understand that it's fairly limited. The moment you think that an interview process can be comprehensive, then you've got the interview wrong. You should understand that there are certain limitations. Hire people, start working with them, and then understand the interview process is not a one-time and 1 hour fixed process, but kind of it's a continuum for the first 3 months. That's why it's called a probation.
Correct.
Right? I do hire people fairly quickly. I've been told recently not to do that. I'm trying to work on it myself.
Hire slower, fire faster.
Correct. We also, over a period of time, when we see really good people, but we think that the role doesn't fit them, we usually mold them in a role which perhaps didn't exist earlier. You need to be the troubleshooter. You need to mold things according to people, and they'll shine.
I come from a strong belief that if you want to successfully run a company, you should get your hands dirty in each and every role, or at least have an experience. As part of this journey, I think you would have gotten your hands dirty. I remember you telling me there was a point in time where you used to design stuff on Canva.
Correct.
Walk us through that, which you had to do in the start, but you don't do right
So
now.
I think there are two sides to the coin, Neet. I think one, you're right. You need to be close to the scene of action.
Yeah.
When you start out, small team, 4-5 people, if you're close to the scene of action, you'll be much more. It'll be much more clear to you when you see that the product's actually getting traction, the product market fit. What are the things that you need to tinker with to make the product market fit? And it could also be the solution could also be a people solution, right? So yeah, that's great. However, a large amount of time, and this is particularly prevalent in the agency business, people end up looking at that scenario of 10 people being close to the scene of action as something which they always have to continue doing. So it becomes almost like a trap where they continue to be closer to that. So it's not going to help you get to the next 10 people. So you need to quickly see what's the product market fit, set the right people, and then consciously get out of the way. Because those people whom you've taken in, those talented people, will also leave if you continue to be closer to the scene of action, because they don't feel empowered.
Yeah.
And then after some time, you also feel absolutely out of place, low on bandwidth, because you're doing things for which you've already recruited people for.
Yeah.
So it's very important to quickly do that, move out of the position, almost be bipolar in that sense,
Correct.
and do something completely different once you've set things in motion.
I think entrepreneurs don't understand what is the right moment to get out. If you can dive a bit more deeper, like when did you decide to get out? What did you see in that particular thing? For example, you went in, and what was that thing you decided, like, okay, hi, the team is set, I can get out, right?
I think we're all driven by, as a company, at least I'm driven by scale.
Yeah.
Right? So the moment we see that the initial 2 to 3 customers are actually getting serviced without your involvement, at that point of time, you're not trying to get into actually those 2-3 customers and trying to solve it yourself.
Yeah.
That's the time when you look at what else can we do, either with acquiring new customers or finding new products which could perhaps want the next 2-3 customers, right? And then try to separate these two things consciously. Right? You cannot mix this. So at LPS, one of the reasons why, at least in the last 3 years, we've been able to see significant amount of growth is because we've separated these two things, right? Like on one side, you have the agency operations. You see what's happening with LPS. We have some services which have had product market fit. People know us because of it. Clients work with us because
I
of
think
clients.
TikTok was massive for you, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. So before that, right? Like we were essentially a social media agency, and TikTok hadn't happened. So we were doing what every other social media agency was doing. We had a few really good client relationships. And that was helping us sort of linearly grow. So what we did at that point of time, we said, okay, this is great, and that's your agency operations. And then we built a separate sort of a laboratory called New Age Services. We invested in people by looking at what are those communities which will become the next social media, and which no one's talking about. I mean, sort of what Peter Thiel would say, probably say, what are those companies which no one else are building? That's how we decided to separate these two things. That TikTok was just starting off. It was essentially song and dance, and everyone thought trivial thing, never going to become what it is today. So, but we thought it would. And the simple reason was we did see a lot of people, the community was really strong and everyone sort of moving in that direction. With COVID coming in, it almost became solace space for people who completely out of place with all the things around them. So we looked at an opportunity. We invested in content creators, short form video content creators at that point of time, who came from platform, who didn't even belong to the professional corporate world, right? Like, so we start taking them in. When you start on something like that, which is absolutely new, you have the opportunity to go to brands, clients who already have agencies. Brands are looking for TikTok and they don't have an agency for it, right? They want to experiment. And that's where you have this opportunity to go after not only new brands, but also brands who have existing agencies but haven't looked at short form video or TikTok, right? So in this process, two very interesting things happen. Number one is you're able to charge a premium because no one else is doing it. And the second thing, and this is the less obvious thing, is the fact that you're able to find great talent, prices or rates which haven't yet surged through the roof. Because there's no one else looking for these people.
Absolutely.
Right? So on one side, you have this extremely high premium to services. On the other side, you have this extremely affordable talent. Your window to create bottom line is very, very large.
Nice.
And that's the window. The window of 2 years. Before, what happens is every other agency catches up and this talent becomes super in demand in the market. So their prices also
Go up,
right? That's the point where you look for your next new age
thing,
services.
yeah,
and for
sense.
us, that was gaming. Right? So we started with TikTok, short form video, build that in as a product. Because when you start out, clients don't know what they want, right? They're not going to send a brief, hey, give me a TikTok. They're like, tell me what to do. So we would say, hey, 4 videos, X, Y, cut out specifications that this is what we're going to do. It's a product, right? But in 2 years, they know exactly what they want. They'll send you briefs. Then it becomes part of your larger services or social media.
Right.
So your social media services, solutions
Keep on
become more
evolving.
enriched. And then you go after your next product.
I love what you mentioned about Peter Thiel and the example of when you're starting off something and when no one is talking about it.
Correct.
That is the perfect time to get into
Correct.
it. And if you have identified that, I've been there in the forefront, right? When you wanted to get into TikTok, no one was doing it.
Correct.
But right now, every agency is doing
Correct.
it. I relate what you said to a little bit of our journey. When we were talking about podcasting, no one was talking about podcasting as well, right?
Correct.
I think I was like one of the only few mad people in Dubai thinking like podcasting is going to be big. So many podcasting companies coming up,
Correct.
right? Like so many studios are coming up. And even we are understanding, okay, fine, like this is how the market evolves and we try differentiating ourselves. But here's one thing I want to understand, right? When so many podcasting companies are out or when so many marketing agencies are out there, right? But you have your few clients and you want to differentiate yourself. You don't
Correct.
want, in the eyes of the client, you don't want to be seen as a commodity.
Yeah.
You don't want to be seen as any other marketing agency.
Yeah.
What steps have you taken to help that?
We kind of use something called the Miller-Hyman model. What that is it's sort of a pyramid of how, and it's used in sales ideally, of how a relationship with a client is currently, where should it be, and what should you do to get there. We are the agency who does a certain service which the client wants. They've given us specifications, we deliver it, right? And now that's the base sort of relationship. The next level would perhaps be, this is the one thing that if anywhere across the organization they come to LPS, right? As an agency. And then as you go up, you have us almost being the business partner, contributing to the business problems. Every agency ideally should move from that base level of just being the service provider to being a business partner, right? A process-oriented visibility on whatever we want to execute, right? So it's this whole mix of getting the product right, and trying, at least sort of working towards that, trying to get the product right, innovating on it, and trying to make the product market fit. Then on the second side, having this sort of an outlook on how to grow accounts with, I mentioned the Miller-Hyman model, and then finally looking at ASANA as a tool to ensure that execution excellence actually happens through all this, and there's a feedback mechanism back. So that's how we follow on every aspect.
I want to understand from you, how can Asana be made simple for entrepreneurs? How can project management be made simple for entrepreneurs? Because it's a very complex tool. And can everything be brought on Asana? If so, how?
I'll tell you a very interesting story. One of our, so last year, right, like we renew Asana subscription every year. Interestingly, one of the video editors and designers emails us saying that, hey, Asana is not working. I'm not able to do what I have to do. Now that for me is real victory. The point where all processes fail is when they don't get adopted by teams. That was the main sort of a thing. And then what happens is over a period of time, you then start getting ideas from the team on what can be done, what are the things which are going wrong. Whenever you're looking to put a process together, in my opinion, is try to build habits. We look at it very simply. There's project, there's tasks within it, there's subtasks within it. And when you finish it, you just mark it, right? Now, we started Monday meetings every week. We have Monday meetings where we discuss what are the Asana tasks that the entire team has.
The entire
together.
60. Okay.
Correct. We call it a pinboard session where basically putting all these tasks. So the account management team, sales team put the tasks, and the delivery team, which is creative production, have to complete the tasks. So we bring all of them together, put it on a screen and say, hey, here's what's there for the week. Does anyone in the team across ranks have any reservations on this? Right? And that discussion actually creates it's almost like, if I have to say, it's almost like a team ritual where everyone agrees, or just like that, that little ritual before the war, where everyone agrees that today we are here to win. Today we are here to do these tasks, right? And if anyone here has a problem, please raise your hand so that we can help you with it. That is, so always it's very important to always communicate and create these habits to whatever changes you're bringing in within the team. And I think that's how we've been able to sort of grow this tool within, I mean, we go into the scientific details, but those are things that have evolved over a period of time. But the first thing is this.
But I think as an entrepreneur, to implement any new process or new tool, you yourself need to understand it, right? You're bringing in that change. So most of the time, you're the one, I think even once upon a time, you brought in Notion. A lot of time needs to be spent on learning new things, learning new processes, which can take the agency to the next levels, right? So if you're an entrepreneur, actively spend time on learning things which can make the processes and efficiencies much better. Notion is such a widely adopted tool. A lot of people talk about it. Lots of productivity nerds all around there, like Notion is this, Notion is this, Notion is this. But then you tried Notion and you said like, no, Notion is not for me. Why did you say that?
We did see the value in Notion and we started using it for storyboarding, right? Because when you're doing, let's say, lean, short form, quick social content, you cannot do expansive storyboards, right? Like you need to do something which is fairly lean and sort of use that. And so we decided to use that, but the bottleneck was the clients were not ready to adopt it. So what happened was our team would do something on Notion and then they had to again change it to the presentation and then share with the team. Now I didn't, of course, I mean, at the top of it, I wouldn't know about it. But then this is where it's very important to have an active two-way feedback where the team tells you, Aasim, this is not working, right? We're doing this and we're doing that. We'll do it because you want us to do it, but
it's not working.
And I think it's very important at that point in time to have that humility and say, hey, yeah, you're right. As an entrepreneur, and your goals are served if you're able to serve other people's goals.
100%.
Right? I introduce myself as the chief troubleshooter wherever I go. I mean, and I think it's so important.
I love the title you mentioned, Chief Troubleshooting Officer. Throughout the day, I am firefighting all of these issues which my team members are facing. And then my actual work, which I have to do, gets delayed till the end of the day. And because of that, I have to work on the weekends or work something to make up for that. Does that happen with you? I know you work. When I used to work with you, like, you used to work all the days. And I used to be like, Aasim, why are you working all the time? Why are you not taking a break? It is your company.
Right.
When it's your company, why can you not take? But now I'm you. I have become you.
Yeah.
So walk me through this. Like, am I right in saying this, or like you have a different thing?
I think we're all constantly learning, right? Like, don't get me wrong. We all want to romanticize how much we want to put in work.
Yeah.
There is a reason why ownership and your role in the company needs to be clearly differentiated. Very successful people actually hire CEOs. Then they continue to do what they're really good at and what made them special in the first place.
Correct. There's this principle called 131. It says that if there's a particular problem that you're facing and You ask the team member, you tell the team member that, listen, come up with 3 solutions on that, 3 good solutions. You then evaluate what is that good solution, and then you take that action.
Correct.
You take that action. And most of the times that would solve your issue, preventing that person to even come to you in the first place. Right?
That becomes super important and increases exponentially in importance as you scale.
Yeah.
If you have the people who can take up that ownership and take calls, which you may not agree with sometimes. You may agree, you may disagree. But at the end of the day, taking that decisive call is far more valuable because it frees you to do things which you're really good at. The reason why people don't take that call is because that's kind of front loading of costs, right? It's not something where you get immediately monetized. Front load people who would get you out of things because that's going to help you be special as you go along, right? Like, so that's the second thing. The third thing is, I think we all need to get comfortable with actually solving for people problems as we go up. The more you go up, the more you're solving people problems. These are not very black and white solutions. These are solutions you keep sort of tinkering with as you go along, but you constantly are trying to optimize for it.
If you were to go away, think about it, for a 1 month vacation, you're gone to, say, like the hills, you're taking a trek.
Yeah.
Can the team function without you at the moment?
Absolutely in LPS. 100%. I think we've got some amazing leaders now in the team. We're also constantly working towards developing them. So if I have to look at what flashes in my mind is all those instances where I would be called in for, right? So I would probably look at getting called in for pitches. I have the person for it. Being called in for commercial meetings, I've got the people for it. So the teams become self-sufficient. And I think that's where, that's how the team scales. Same thing when you say a Stream Shriek or a Plenum, they're
New
not yet
technologies,
there.
yeah.
And that's a choice I make as an entrepreneur. And I do want to also get deeply involved with newer companies. This sort of dichotomy helps me.
It stimulates you, right?
Stimulates
you
me.
love it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's how I put it. I definitely, LPS, absolutely, yes. Plenum, Stream Shriek, I would probably say there's a certain journey to be taken.
One thing I've always admired you, and I've told this already in the past, is your ability to see what is the next big thing, right? Your ability to see what is going to do very, very well. You've identified it with multiple companies in the past. You got into gaming before multiple other companies were looking into gaming. You got into TikTok live streaming and making money from it before other people were doing it. Let's be honest, a marketing agency cannot reach $1 billion valuation.
Correct.
Let's be honest. Right. It can never become $1 billion company because it's too much people dependent, right? Tell me, why can a marketing agency never become $1 billion company, in your opinion?
There's this huge talk right now about, hey, if you want to make $1 billion, go and become a part of a boring industry, right? If you do not get into an industry where there are super passionate people around you, and because you're competing against their passion, you're not competing in business. Now, there's this really amazing guy called Roddy Sutherland who mentioned this about, and he put this hypothesis in one of his talks where he said, let's say there's a problem to increase people who have to travel by trains because they want to make trains profitable, right? Now, if you put an engineer on that job, they'll probably try to reduce the time people spend in those trains so that they can compete with flights. They would put bullet trains in. They would probably get you comfortable seats, all of those, right? Now, imagine if you give this problem to a Disney. How would they solve it? And again, these are hypotheses, but they would probably put in a few characters jumping out. They probably put some amazing entertainment, and they'll probably build an experience. They'll probably put pink trees around while you're going through. There'll be immersive experiences around you. So those 4 hours that you spend in the train doesn't even matter. So the decision-making parameter has changed from time to experience. I got into the agency business because I do believe in the power of creative problem solving, because when people solve for problems in a functional manner, then the problem has a very visible solution. I need to go up the stairs. Here's an elevator. Creative problem solving creates a habit. Everything else just gives you a solution.
You mentioned about an elevator, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes time to go up from the bottom floor to the topmost
Correct.
floor. It can take some amount of time. Within an elevator, they just introduce the mirror.
Right.
The moment people step into the elevator, they are looking at themselves.
Correct.
Is my hairstyle?
Absolutely.
So just by introducing that small thing, by just being a little bit creative, you built it as a habit.
Absolutely. Give you a corollary of that, right?
Yeah.
Today, if we call into banking customer care, if you don't have a premium card, you're waiting for 15 minutes. If you have a premium card, it'll directly get you into talking to that service representative. If you're in the world of perfect competition, now that's a challenge. That's a challenge of people actually having to wait for 15 minutes. Now, what would they normally do is they'll remove these service representatives and put more AI service representatives, right? Like they probably have people who can take, or they'll increase their contact centers. They'll probably go to contact centers in the world where the cost is really low, increase it. Imagine if this problem was given to an agency. I have a challenge, 15 minutes being spent on customer service. Imagine this came to LPS, right? How would we solve it? We are not going to give you technology solutions and function solutions. We're going to give you a creative solution. We're going to say, hey, all right, people spending 15 minutes there. How about changing the decision making of people wanting to log off from time to engagement? How about me getting you a 15-minute AI organizer on that call? I'm going to look at everything that you're doing in the day because I've got access to your calendar and then try to organize it for you, even try to motivate you that you're doing great in the day, right? How about me getting you to listen to, almost be a jukebox and make you listen to some of your favorite songs in the next 15 minutes? How about me actually getting you a couple of nice kids rhymes in the next 15 minutes? People are going to be wanting to be on the 15-minute call, right? So how many people do we know who want to go on an Emirates flight today just because they want to watch movies, right? And they want to have a great experience. They're happy taking that 12-hour flight instead of a 12-hour indirect flight instead of trying to take a 2-hour direct flight. It doesn't just solve for the parameter of challenge, but it just changes parameters, right? And I've
Makes the problem not feel like a problem anymore.
Correct. And then it becomes a habit. This is the reason why I got into building an agency. And this is the reason why a lot of creative people get into the agency business, right? But the problem is that once you get into that, because these larger networks in general, because they have their requirements to scale, they try to put you in this sort of cookie cutter boxes. You're a creative director, you're an art director, you're a copywriter. So everyone then doesn't look at the problem holistically. They just look at what they need to deliver, right? And it becomes really tough when you move into an independent agency like LPS and de-learn. And kudos to people who've done that within our agency. Creative problem solving and the business of creative are two different things. Have you ever thought why you have an agency business and then suddenly this very smart technology entrepreneur comes in and creates a SaaS solution which disrupts the agency business? Absolutely. Right? Why isn't there a reverse SaaS? Why is it that agencies don't actually go the other side? When they have all the tools, all the data, or even if they create it, why isn't it widely adopted? There are agencies which have proprietary solutions, but the only people who know about it are the clients who are really dissatisfied with it, right? But it never happens. There's no reverse SaaS to things. And the reason is because creative problem solving has been kind of defaulted to the business of creative agencies. My whole idea of moving from, and outside it may look like gaming or a technology. Plenum is a pure enterprise implementation company. Now that's a very different company then. It may look like a very left-brain company then. But what I would really like to do in the next few years is how can I take whatever I've learned from creative problem solving and apply it to industries technology where there's no creative problem solving. Yeah. And that's for me is a blue ocean. For me, it's not about whether, hey, there's passionate people or not passionate people. There's passionate people everywhere. Boring companies, agencies could be boring companies, right? But how is it that you can take a certain problem-solving approach and apply it to industries where it doesn't exist at all? And that is $1 billion business. So you can build agencies with $1 billion if provided you look at it from an aspect of not how it's done conventionally.
Going back to your previous point, blue ocean, elaborate for the audience.
In different industry verticals, there are spaces where there's no businesses operating. There are these opportunities where there's no competition and the opportunity is very high. Those are blue oceans.
Tell me, how is your agency adopting AI?
So there are 3 levels to it. Number 1 is using off-the-shelf AI, which exists, creating a process or cost optimization. Instead of shooting a video, you could probably shoot a campaign in front of a certain location, but then tomorrow you want to replace the location in different parts of the world, right? So we're already doing that. There's already a team which is inside, we call it LPS AI right now, still one of those new age NAS laboratory projects.
Right.
The second level is when you're able to take those existing off the shelf, stitch it together, add a certain workflow to it, and create a separate product for it. I'm talking from a social media point, but let's say I'm going to give you 5 reels, but I'm also going to give you 3 AI generated videos, right? Then it becomes a product. And then the last level is where you're able to build something proprietary over this existing hyperscalers, right? Like these large language models. I mean, that race is gone. I mean, that race, that's something which you don't get into. But can you take those existing large language models, build something at an AI inferencing level, which is unique to a certain application, right? Like for example, if I have to use all the pitches that I've built till now, these are all first party data, right? I don't put it out publicly. But can I take all of that, put it over an existing hyperscaler, AI hyperscaler, and build a very specific pitch generation model?
When we speak about AI, people think it's only ChatGPT, but
Correct.
it's not.
It's not.
If you're using ChatGPT, you're at the basic most usage of AI, right? Which everyone in the world right now has access to. A lot of companies are being built on AI right
Absolutely.
now. And if you can leverage it to develop it in a way that you have mentioned,
Correct.
like you could probably be the next $1 billion company.
Correct.
You mentioned about working with clients, right? Like I just want to understand this. An agency grows when you get more clients, right? Or you upsell your existing clients on new services, right? Some clients can be nightmare clients.
Correct.
How do you identify this particular client is going to be a nightmare client and probably not work with that client before?
A lot of times what happens is in an industry where there's so much there's low barrier to entry and there's so much competition, everyone gets into this very ruthless sales mode. We are all in this zone where selling is all it is, right? Like get to the right clients, you get 5 clients, you're happy, and that's your mode. It's not. I think the agencies start failing when they become a victim to the client's vision. You're here to grow the brand, not the client stakeholder.
Right.
We need to also get information to solve that. So if you're getting the right amount of information, we're as good as the client's briefing. It is a communication two-way. These things are very important. Scale also gives you power to have a lot of no conversations also with clients as much as you have yes conversations. We've been recognized. Initially, it was something which we thought was surreal. We got the social media agency of the year. This is the second year. We also got nominated globally. It opened a lot of opportunities for us. It opened a lot of doors for us. It opened a lot of. It also gave us a lot of exposure of we're actually doing something special here. These are things which would be offset if we're able to build this sort of decentralized identity, global identity with different offices where we are able to cater to clients based on what we've learned here. Reduce our bargaining power in front of the clients to look at a bigger canvas to make things happen.
What is the next big thing that is truly exciting you? Because if something excites Aasim, it's the next big thing.
Thesis is I've always gotten into this because of storytelling. Video has played a big role in my life. And I do believe video at this point of time, because of short form video, it's already a language. People talk to each other with videos, right? People want to get trained. This whole generation of young people, right? Like who are going to come into the workforce, they're not going to look at PDFs to get trained, right? They're going to basically want to see stories and short form videos to get trained.
Imagine if you can do training via memes.
That's the thesis. How can we use these content formats to build the next experiences which go beyond platforms?
Aasim, thank you so much for sharing all these insights over here. It's been incredible talking to you and learning what are the steps that you're taking.
It's been a pleasure, Neet. Thank you for having me.
On a final note, I would like to say that though I don't work with you anymore full time, we are actively servicing you as an agency. So thank you for giving us that opportunity.
Yeah. And thank you for helping me with my content. And I always look up to the work you're doing as a content creator.
I think together we are going to grow and we are going to break all barriers possible. Awesome. To a long and sustained relationship.
Thank you.
Let's make great things happen.
Absolutely.